Hey guys, so welcome back to Indirect Knowledge. So I've been away for a couple days. We've had um, some different work that we've been doing and stuff. We had some visitors come in from Europe, and so just I apologize, if I haven't been as responsive as I usually am. Um, it's just been a very busy week for the most part, but it is now the weekend. Today's Ekadashi. It's a fasting day. We fast from grains, lentils, beans, those kind of things. It's somewhat an auspicious day. So we have a very special tarot card reading today, and this is for T. And so we did a tarot card reading for T not too long back, but this particular one is about kind of along the same lines. I think in the last reading, I'd said something like around 2 months, picking up that 2 number. And then instead of 2 months, it was actually like 2 weeks. So T hit me back up, and we're going to do a tarot card reading for her now. And this is about this guy whose first name starts with an E. And he's been connecting back again, from, where they had been more together before. But the question isn't really so much about that, because that kind of already materialized to some degree. It's more about like the future and kind of where this thing is going, what's, kind of headed her way with it. Is it going to be more of the same, that she's had in the past, which is really what she's looking to get away from and not really desiring? Or is it going to be something more committed, something a little bit more wholesome, as far as the relationship and everything is concerned? So I've already shuffled these once a bit ago while I was doing this. Now I'm going to shuffle them just thinking about this very question. And now we'll do our reading. The thing about these cards is I try to stay pretty neutral when I do a tarot card reading. I try not to think negative thoughts or even positive thoughts for that matter. It's just more neutral. I like to see, because I think that's really I think when you do that, when you're doing tarot card readings, it's less about your energy getting mixed into the thing, but it's more about the channeling through of the other person's energy and what's going on with the situation. And it kind of brings things into perspective. I know I become much more aware of things when I'm sort of unconsciously aware, if that kind of makes sense, than when I'm more consciously trying to think about things. So when the cards come up, they kind of paint a picture or kind of a story, in a sense, of kind of this situation and what actions could or should be taking place, or might be an opportunity for something positive to come along, or it could be something more along the lines of maybe just some best practices or best advice, or just some kind of thing like that sometimes surfaces and comes up. But let's get started. So I've gone ahead and dealt out these cards. We're going to do 7-card reading today. I didn't mention that, but that's what we're doing. The first card that we have is the 9 of Swords. Okay, sometimes it's called the Nightmare card because it's sort of like, it's where we sort of become faced with our worst fears about a situation or our worst thoughts about it, and we kind of have to see it head on. And that's what we see with like nightmares. It's sort of like it's the worst possible outcome, and we kind of experience it mentally through our mind and that, while we sleep, through dream and that type of thing. And that's kind of this 9 of Swords. 9's also about completion. Swords about conflict. So you get the ending, the conflict and that kind of thing. But 9 in tarot is sort of like the one before the 10, which is 10 is sort of a middle card between the ending and the new beginning. So it's kind of like you have the ending, you have a little bit of time, that's the 10 card, and then you have the new beginning, which would be the ace in the tarot, or 1 in numerology. But for this is painting a picture, of the past and the way things were, and sort of, where the heart was there, and then there was, some things went wrong, awry, and it brought some heartache and different things, and things ended. Today, though, where we're at is a completely different place altogether. And this is the Queen of Wands. Gives us a little bit more insight. This is where we're most active at right now. This Queen of Wands. Wands are kind of this, it's kind of this energy of like kind of movement and fast paced. If you can kind of imagine that, you can kind of see the energy is like, we're not really pausing here. We're just kind of, getting up and taking care of things. You got the sunflower, which is a really positive thing. The queens in the tarot have a really positive kind of vibrational frequency, a good energy. And the wands, it's kind of like gets us moving, gets us up, gets us doing something. A lot of times it's about creativity as well. So it's sort of like finding creative ways of doing things, or creative, seeking out more creative endeavors. It might be time of like introspection for some of us, but I think for this here, it's more about like just really taking action. And we see that sort of, T has actually, I don't want to say taken the bait, but E has actually reached out to her, really encouraged her, tried to get her to really come by and see him and this, that, and the other. And she did. So it's sort of that energy of taking action. But now what's positive about this is that T is really in the position at this juncture to kind of have the power play, the power. And it's just the influence. And queens are really all about influence. And they influence situations and outcomes. And they can do it in a really subtle way. They don't have to be real direct to get what they want. And at the end of the day, I think that the queen is really about, wanting to, in a very peaceful and kind of indirect sort of fashion, get what she wants, And normally that involves doing the bidding for someone else. So it's like a motherly kind of love. A mother will go to bat for you, will fight for you, will be the person in your corner more so and faster than anybody else, and they're relentless, but at the same time, they do it kind of indirectly, they kind of get people thinking, maybe by asking questions and kind of, getting things out of the person a little bit. That's kind of the queen energy there, it's sort of like using a little bit of charm, a little bit of wit to kind of get what they want and to kind of move that situation in that direction. And that's kind of where you're at, T. That's kind of where we're at right now with it. Let's talk for a minute. And I'm not so sure, I'm getting some kind of a psychic intuitive sense that maybe these cards have sort of come up before for you. I mean, you'd have to double check me on this, but I'm just kind of picking that up. But the next card that we have, it's our future card. And this is our King of Cups. So this is where the queen personality kind of steps into the king role. And the king role is really about, protecting others, serving other people. The king is really the greatest servant in the kingdom, but it's also the one with the most power and the most responsibility. So, and if you live in a location that doesn't have kings, it would be the equivalent of like, the prime minister or the president. And this can apply to companies. It can apply to local jurisdictions. It can apply to countries. It can apply to so many different levels. But for this, it's about taking control of the situation. This is a cup. It's all about relationships. And so whereas the queen was sort of like doing this preliminary kind of, moving the needle in our favor kind of deal, the king here is more about like taking ownership of the relationship and moving into that relationship and it being a very solid, stable relationship. We have a little bit of unconsciousness going here. We have the king on the water. The queen, she was sort of on land, but near the water. The king now on the same plot is like, not immersed in, but has his toe dipped in the water. It's a little bit more unconscious. So even though the king can be very direct, this particular king with a relationship can also, help people kind of balance their emotions and, not get as hurt and those type of things as well. It's kind of parental in that sense. It's sort of like we know we have this protector. We have this guardian angel, if you will, or this person or this entity or this, God, or however you want to particularly think about it, kind of there looking out for us, and that good energy that some people call it luck, Mother Nature, however you want to look at it. It's sort of that energy of that protective energy that also really lets us take control and helps us out. So, kings, of course, they had to fight to keep their positions, in the old days. And they had to, have armies and make decisions and stuff that affected the kingdom, and as well try to have a good life and everything and do what they needed. They had abundance and wealth, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes we need like spiritual and higher vibrational things. But for now, moving into this relationship, it will be somewhat more along the lines of taking control of the relationship and really, setting some boundaries. And that's what the King of Cups is really about. He sets the boundaries and he sets the standard. And you have to kind of let people know what you want if you're going to get what you want. And that's kind of what this king is signifying here as far as the future goes. It looks like you'll have pretty good success with that. You just have to kind of let the boundaries be known. Say, look, I really appreciate you. I love being with you. I'm grateful for the relationship. However, let's talk about things for a minute. How is this going to play out? Because I'm needing these things in this relationship. And, if it's really not for you, or if it's not going to be, then, fair enough, and then, you can agree amicably to, maybe move in different directions if that's what you choose. But it doesn't look like that's necessarily what you're wanting. You have the control, you have the power to have it the way that you want. But it's also a question of sometimes we have to kind of let down our guard a bit. And we also have to kind of sometimes think about what it is, like if we look at the person we want to be with and we say, okay, I love you. I want to serve you. This is a person for me. Sometimes it's about, if, for example, like if one person wants children, another person doesn't want children, then it could be a situation of like, that might be one of those things where like, well, how do you really get over that hurdle? How do you really like compromise on that level? And it has to be a decision. One person has to have it their way and the other person obviously not. So, if that's the case, you have to kind of, state your reasons and kind of why you're wanting things and how you see your life developing and your lifestyle. And then the other person needs to do the same thing and kind of explain kind of what their vision is. And when you look at the two visions, then you can kind of get an idea of like, okay, well, will my vision work inside of your vision, and will your vision work inside of my vision? And if you can do that, then you can bring about a lot of really positive, a path. You can get some kind of an understanding for one another and where you're at, have respect for one another, love for one another, and try to see what you can do to make things work. And it's a lot better than just going in blindsided, like not really having an idea of exactly the way that you want things to be or the way that the other person would like for things to be as well. It's really about true honesty at this point. And that's our future card. So I'm picking up, something, it's coming about, number 7 keeps coming to me, it's either 7 months, maybe 7 days, but the number 7 is kind of showing up in my mind as I talk about this. So the next thing that we have is let's go a little deeper here. So if we look at this Queen of Wands, the card that kind of tells us a little bit about that Queen of Wands is Ace of Cups. So this is about, we see this cup, that cup overfloweth, wealth, abundance, kind of wishes. It's sort of a wish card, but it's a wish about the future. And it doesn't mean necessarily a new start per se in a relationship or a new relationship happening. It could very well just be it could be an old relationship that is done differently, like in a new fashion or a new sense. Maybe things are different now. Times change, people have different wants and needs at different varying points along their lifeline. And so it could be that this is a very blessed situation that you're finding yourself in right now to be able to really start to materialize the things that you're desiring, that you're wanting. Let's find out kind of where you're at with all of this, though, because sometimes that doesn't always correspond with the reality that we just talked about. And this is it, looking at things differently. The Hanged Man is kind of seeing things differently than what was before. So in this particular instance, it does kind of align with the Ace of Cups, that kind of newer energy, or seeing things a little bit different, newer. And this is a this card, I always think of a reminder card of like, okay, you've got these gold coins, they fall out of your pocket onto the ground. Maybe you're looking down at them and you're seeing them just differently than you had before. They have a different, just it's a different experience altogether for you. Or maybe you're looking up and you're seeing the world kind of differently. And I don't know if any of you guys watching this have ever done it. I know myself personally as a child, used to play around trees, hang upside down, and then look up at the sky. And it was a very interesting experience. It's like, whoa, the whole world just got a lot bigger, and it's a lot, you can kind of feel it's a little woozying almost, to kind of think about it. But that's kind of what this hanged man is doing. This hanged person is really just kind of, the attitude is just, well, I'm open to seeing things a little bit differently. Maybe we can materialize some nice things and just kind of see what's going to happen. And I think that's kind of where you're at. Well, that's what the card is anyway indicating. It's a 3 energy, which is usually a pretty positive energy. Sometimes it's celebratory, and sometimes it's sometimes it's not. Sometimes 3's not at company. Like there are 3's company, 2's together. Anyway, let's move on to our answer. Let's move on to our outcome. The answer card for this reading, in order to get things, in order to materialize things in the way that you're envisioning them and seeing them, is this Knight of Swords right here. We said swords are about conflict, horses, knights, it's really about charging off. Knights are also messengers sometimes. They're kind of like the pages, they bring messages, but this is sort of like, when you need something to get there fast, you need a message fast, a lot of times you have to send a knight on horse, and he just runs and gallops and gets to where it needs to be until he can pass the message on. But this one here is about like movement and a little bit of conflict, but it's also about thoughts and thinking things through. And so the advice for this knight, the advice this knight's actually bringing, or the message bringing, is to be fearless, but at the same time, use a little bit of thought, use your intuition with it, and things will, materialize nicely for you. And that's what the answer. This is sort of our key. This is the key that unlocks our door to our outcome. Let's find out what the outcome is. Okay, so our outcome card is the 3 of Swords. You see this card here. 3, like I said before, 3s can be very positive, and then you have the 3 of Swords here. This is like a love triangle kind of situation when this card comes up. It could be like somebody else involved, or it could be somebody, that we think is involved and they're not really involved. And that's more kind of what I'm picking up here. Sometimes it's easy for our mind to play tricks on us, and the swords are kind of like, you put a lot of thought into things with the swords, and sometimes our mind is our own worst enemy. I've said it before, like for one who's conquered the mind is the best of friends. For one who's failed to do so, the mind can be the greatest enemy. And in this case, it's certainly true. And that, by the way, comes from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 6, if you're interested in reading that. But we have the rain, and we just have that negativity and things that show up. And so this is kind of like this is the outcome. So if we want to, experience this or something, I don't think you probably would, then the key to experiencing would be this card. So we would have to pretty much kind of do the opposite of this. And in this case, it's sort of like, don't be hasty. In other words, don't take action too quickly. And then you can avoid kind of the love triangle thing. Sometimes it's like betrayal. Sometimes the 3 of Swords is called the betrayal card too. It's like where, someone might betray you to be with someone else or something along those lines. It's totally avoidable though, if you just understand what the key is. And this is our key. The key to getting this would be to follow suit with this card. So in this case, and I normally don't ever read cards upside down, this is what you're really looking for. And, I think you're going to be pretty good considering you had this hanged man here, and the hanged man is looking at things differently. So to look at things differently, what you would need to do to kind of avoid the, the unhappiness or, the love triangle kind of thing that we talked about just a moment ago was the outcome for this reading. It would be this Knight of Swords kind of in the reverse position, and the Knight of Swords in reverse would be more along the lines of like, don't really, let your mind play tricks on you. Don't overthink things, because then you ultimately will manifest those things into your life. So if you think negative thoughts will come about. However, with this Knight of Swords, don't go too fast, because again, you'll get more of this kind of thing. So it's about slowing down. And that's really what the answer is for you in this reading, to kind of get the outcome that you're desiring. But assuming that things go as they are, and it seems like they may have been going a little bit faster than what would be recommended, maybe, it would be to say, just kind of slow down a bit, let this thing kind of do its thing. And things will be exactly the way that you would like them to be. You'll get what you want. And this relationship will be a great relationship, and you'll be happy with it. But it has to kind of slow down. And the message here is don't overthink this thing. Enjoy the moments that you have. Don't let yourself fall, hard for this relationship right yet. It'll happen, but just let it kind of materialize naturally. It should be a natural process for you. And if you let that happen, things will be really good. And I think that you and E will be quite happy together. And I don't think you have to worry about anything else. This card, even though this comes up, it's not so much about this love triangle or betrayal or third person kind of coming into the picture, more or less. It's sort of about it's like a test of your own faith with the thoughts and the things that you're thinking about, and letting go of some of the old. If you've ever gone through experiences before and people have cheated on you, or you've had experiences that just didn't materialize the way that you exactly like them to be, those thought loops can keep coming back around and around, and can keep playing themselves out, and they can keep producing those same results. You don't want that. So the message here for you today is to let those thought loops just break the chain once and for all, and you'll see a different outcome. And the outcome for you will be a very positive outcome, a good relationship. And I do pick that up, and I can see smiles on your faces, nice smiles, and on him I see that also. And it's just it's a very synergistic kind of true love kind of picture. But anyways, if you need anything, of course, reach out. I'm always available, always here for you. Again, guys, I'm sorry that I kind of dropped off the planet for a minute. We've just been, we had some guests come and to the ashram and everything, so we've been taking care of that. So a lot of things going on. But anyways, much love, many blessings. I will see you guys on the next episode of Indirect Knowledge. If you haven't already done so, check out the description below this video. I got the resources and everything down there if you'd like to connect. And we will see you guys on the next episode of Indirect Knowledge.